Oh,
They have time. Oh,
I have a snarky just with you. I'll make it up to you. I'll spend more time away from the office.
Yeah, you wanted to say something ahead of time.
Yeah. So before John calls the meeting into order, this is the format for Zoom. If you've never participated in Zoom before, Zoom isn't going live on our website, but we are recording as we speak. And then what will happen in the future, we're going to use this format for the annual meeting, and I'll explain more about that later based on what we're going to be faced with. But it's pretty interactive. I have multiple Zoom meetings every single day now. And basically our friends that are also board members that are joining us on Zoom, they can see us, we can see them, they can hear us, and we can hear them. So for the people that aren't in the room, if you'd like to speak, sometimes you may want to say something and then let the people in the room pause so then we can hear you. Usually it works really, really well. It'll be a fun little experiment tonight, and we'll see how it goes. And she can help mute, different spaces. That's when I say she, I'm talking about Stephanie. So we'll see how it goes. And with that,
Good. Call the meeting to order at 6:32. Join me in the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
What? I would like to ask everybody before we begin the meeting to stand and join me in a moment of silence. We had a student, again, a part of our educational family from Central Square, Jarrett Wells, who passed away, unfortunately. So our thoughts and prayers are with Jarrett's family, and if you would join me in a moment of silence. Thank you. Okay. We have no presentations this evening that I'm aware of.
Nope.
We have no facilities reports. Under the circumstances, highly unusual. This probably will be a fairly brief meeting, but any public comments? We have no public with us this evening, so we will move on to item 5, that being the approval of the minutes of the February 12th, 2020 regular board meeting.
I'll second.
Donna moves, Dave seconds. Any questions, comments, or amendments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
Oh,
Motion
abstain.
Okay, Vanessa will abstain. Okay. Moving ahead to finance items, we can take a motion to get items 6.1 through 6.11 on the table.
I'll move it.
Dave moves.
I'll second.
Vanessa seconds. Questions, comments, breakaways of any of those items? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Moving ahead to item 6.12, this being the 2020-2021 proposed general fund budget summary and program, ISS budget presentation.
Quick question. Did we skip 6.12?
This is 6.12. I have 6.12.
6.12 is just a resolution to approve everything ahead of it, so it's really just a.
No.
It's not really a, that was acted on, that was the resolution that was acted on.
2020 proposed general fund budget summary programs.
6.13.
Okay, I have an old agenda.
Oh, okay.
So that's
Oops.
because that was mine.
Yes, because we added that this morning, sorry.
Okay,
The resolution from the legislation.
The resolution then would be 6.12,
Yes.
to approve every item below, above that. And I believe that was the intent of the motion
Yes.
and resolution.
Correct.
And I believe that, you know,
I actually do have a question then on 6.12. I apologize. I voted through 6.11 based on the agenda I'm looking at. I do have a quick question just for clarification on 6.12. Chris, I don't know if you are able to maybe explain it a little bit for me.
Me or Mike or Roseanne will be able to explain.
Okay, perfect. So my assumption was when this closure came, seeing the letters that went out to the staff and seeing certainly what's happening in my own district, staff is continuing to work, students are continuing to engage. So I am curious as to the nature or the reason behind the resolution to continue to pay staff, because I assumed that we would continue to pay staff. So can you help me with that a little bit?
Yes, so like our salaried staff, it's just understood that during this time, because they're working, they would always get paid. But then we don't have a lot of them, but we have some hourly staff that maybe necessarily under their terms and conditions of employment would only be compensated for time actually spent, working.
Okay.
And in some instances, they may or may not be working, but retention of them is important for us. And in almost every case, the pay that we're paying them is not a substantial cost. It's already a budgeted cost, and it would not be a hardship. It would be a hardship on them to not get paid, but it would not be a hardship on us to continue to pay them, knowing that they're on call and we could utilize them in any nature in any way that we want. Staff has been informed, whether they're salaried or hourly, all of the staff in general has been informed that we are continuing as though, even though people aren't working from here, that the intent is that they're doing work at home in most cases. And in the case where they may not be assigned direct work at home right now, they know that they have to check their email once in the morning, once in the afternoon, and that if needed, that we could call upon them during normal working hours to utilize them to kind of help us with the continuum of education. So that's the explanation for that.
Perfect. My vote remains yes. Thank you.
okay, now item 6.13, I believe, and that is the proposed general fund budget summary program and ISS budget presentation.
Yeah, so this budget presentation is actually in the hands of the program side of the house.
Yeah, and Chris told me.
And unfortunately, because of the
Yes.
circumstances,
Last year, it was especially effective because each one of our principals
Yeah.
presented their own program and got to explain it to you and give you their ups and downs. We have a presentation ready that I could read to everybody, but I don't think it's going to have the impact without the principals sharing their own stories from each program, so.
right. And just under the circumstances, the number of people we would have had and the exposure that they have had to outside entities, which is far greater than almost all of you, I erred on the side of caution and said, if there's questions about it, and it doesn't mean just because it's being presented to you that you can't, between now and the annual meeting, come up with 1,000 questions to ask Mike or Roseanne or any of the program folks. Was the PowerPoint created, or was the presentation pretty much done? We do always do.
The PowerPoint is created, I just didn't,
Right, no, and that wasn't my intention.
No, but it is, each principal did 2 to 4 slides. We combined those with the director's slides for each one of the programs, and ISS and technology department all contributed slides to the whole PowerPoint.
Okay. So there is a chance that even though we know our annual meeting And we'll talk more about that, it will be brief. If we can pull it off and possibly do something remotely with them, I think the impact of you understanding that each part of each program budget is impactful. Maybe we can make that a part of the annual meeting. We'll see what's possible. But I mean, it wouldn't be technology's limitations. It would be probably more my understanding of the limitations of what it can do and not do, and how easy it would be to transfer portions of that presentation through Zoom to different people. But we'll sort of cross that bridge when we get there.
Okay.
And for the first time since I've been here, and all of the money part of it is out of there. And there were no money slides to present by any of the program people. And then Mike's portion was at the end to like wrap it all up. But we took out the money slides in the middle of the student stuff, so that we just were doing straight up student this year, so.
So what you do have in front of you though is the annual budget detail packet, which actually goes through all of the coasters and all of the object groups of expense and gives footnotes of explanations about why some of the more slightly larger swings were taking place. The very last page, page 25, as the bottom line illustrates that the adopted budget as compared to the proposed budget is actually going up just about $4.2 million. That's the overall budget, which is inclusive of the admin, the capital, and the programs and services, and across contracts, et cetera. So it's about 4.2 million, or about 6.4% overall.
And Mike, is it my understanding that increase is inclusive of the idea that the subscriptions, that's reflective of the ask by
Yes,
districts?
the districts. There was a slide in the presentation that actually shows the breakout of the district spending portion of our budget and the program and service portion of the budget, which is to deliver the services and the programs requested by the districts. And how those two compare to each other.
Right. Oftentimes, and we say this all the time, but we understand it because we're here. People will say, "Oh, your entire budget is going up 6.9%." Well, yes, if you subscribe less, it could go down 6.9%. So it's a lot of. I mean, virtually all of we have inflationary costs like everybody else. There's a cost to doing business, but this is reflective of a request for services and some inflationary costs.
In the presentation that you have, does it reflect those numbers in your portion of the slideshow where the pupil count goes up in which areas, just so we have that?
Yeah.
And then the slides that normally were in the presentation with all the monies, we're gonna be in front of you. So that, so sometimes like the directors felt like the principals get to say all the fun stuff, and then we get up there and just say, column one, it's this many thousands, and so we were gonna have all the financial stuff for you to look at in front of you, but the slideshow itself was a little different.
So we're gonna send the financials, Mike, to them with any questions that and then have them reflect upon them, and then any questions they may have, they can direct back to you or I.
Okay.
On that.
And I can give you one example. If you turn to page 3 in this packet,
Yes.
you'll see towards the top, it's COSER 207, exceptional ed, the 612 program. There's a footnote. The first top line there is the 150 line, which is all of the instructional. So if you follow it over, the two shaded columns are going from 2.6 to 3, almost 3.1, which is a $400,000 increase, a 16% increase in the salaries. But if you look at the footnote, it explains added one class in the current year following budget adoption, which is comprised of 3 TAs and a teacher, et cetera. So similar things. So if you needed to dive into the detail, that's what this gives you the explanation.
Thank you.
Yeah, and Mike is this is the most transparent budget, you'll see, because Mike adds the footnotes and makes them viewable to everybody. So if you're looking at something and you have questions, just let Mike know, let me know. But you can always go directly to Mike, especially now during this portion of my life in my career. You're much more likely to get an answer within 24 hours from Mike.
And 01 is your administrative budget, the stuff that our people are looking at for their
voting and stuff.
Yes,
Correct.
yes.
Any other questions of Mike, Roseanne, Chris? Okay, moving ahead to item 7, personnel items.
Yeah, John, just speak a second before you begin. In front of you, you'll see a copy of the personnel agenda, looks different than what you've seen before, it's a little bit similar. And the reason why I'm sharing this with you is for the past year and a half, Giselle has worked very closely with my department in training them on using the WinCap's management system to its fullest and getting them to understand the importance of data and the relationships with data. And prior to tonight, every time there was a board agenda done, it was really done by hand, which when you do something by hand, lends itself to errors. And sometimes when we would start a personnel section at the following board meeting, I would say, oh, there's a correction. So this is the first time, a lot of first times going on like later around here. This is the first time the board agenda basically was not touched by human hands. It was actually all the details that were put into the WinCap system was pulled from there to create the board agenda. So that being said, if you don't mind, from this point on, you'll still have the board agenda. It'll be in board docs as a PDF versus a paper version. However, if the board's pleasure is to have a paper version, we'll make sure that you get a paper version. So I just wanted to explain that in case you had any questions why it looks a little bit different and how it will be from this point forward. And it's searchable, so it was a big thing for Misty. We had to work with her, Giselle had to work with her to make sure she could find things. And once we kind of got Misty's blessing, then I said, all right, I'll go to the board now. So
The only thing, sometimes we may have computers not working. Others than
Yeah.
that. I think John's right, yours isn't up to.
Yeah, mine was fighting me tonight.
maybe always have like a couple copies
Yeah,
available
that's great.
until that point in time when,
Yes.
you know, device technology is up to par.
Yep.
Okay, one question, Mark, real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
This incorporates the personnel report and also the addendum.
It doesn't have an addendum, so
Okay.
if we, see, that's another thing I need to bring up, I'm glad you mentioned that, John. Because once this is done now,
Yeah.
we cannot add people before we can manually manipulate.
Okay,
So, again, it depends what the board tells us to do. So now, anytime there's a change after like 12 o'clock on Friday before, it would have to come in the form of an addendum. Now, if you don't want the addendum, then we'll do something different. But this will force now an addendum when people are coming in with late entries. You know, sometimes Roseanne will come to us because, you know, like this last minute opening, we have to fill. Hey, we need to appoint this person. We could manually put it in and give you a new agenda before. We won't be able to do that now. It would have to be in the form of an addendum.
okay.
Right, like we know at our June meeting or May meeting, we're gonna have an addendum, right? Because that's when we hire summer school and all those things, and that's usually the 11th hour.
Okay, now the agenda that I have in front of me shows personnel report and addendum report.
Yeah, and there's no addendum, so we can
Gotcha.
take that out.
I'm dealing with an earlier version.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. Okay, then, take a motion on item 7.1. That would be the personnel report.
I'll make it.
I'll second.
Vanessa moves, Donna seconds. Questions, comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Moving ahead to item 7.3. This is a resolution to approve the contract between the Oswego County BOCES Teachers Association and the Oswego County Board of Cooperative Educational Services.
I'll move it.
Dave moves.
Also,
Kevin seconds. Questions or comments? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Moving ahead to item 8, this being instructional support.
John, there was a change there too. There was a field trip that was removed. Sorry, I didn't print out a new one.
Okay.
So SOMLA is still on there.
Okay,
And the camp field trip had been removed because it was canceled.
okay, what do we have now?
Skills USA is still on there?
Yes, right now. it
For
is.
now.
Right now.
So Soma is
Is still there.
there,
Camp
camp
is
is
removed.
removed, so 8.2 is removed.
Sorry.
Okay,
Please.
So, 8.2 being removed, I would take a motion on 8.3, and I believe we can take 8.3 and 8.4 together. I'll take a motion on that.
I'll move it.
Dave moves.
Second.
Brian seconds. Questions or comments on either of those
I
items?
don't have an eight.
I don't have an
or-
No.
I'm sorry.
It's 8.1 through 8.3 because the one's removed. Sorry.
So it's, you want.
We have an old agenda,
Camp is removed.
so
Camp
So
is
it moved
removed.
everything
So I
up.
showed the skills deal is 8.
that would be 8.2.
So you want
Okay,
eight
And then
point.
8.3 would be skills. We're working from.
I should
agenda,
have
which
printed
was
a new
old.
one and I didn't because I printed that last Friday when I was
She
done.
printed my agenda, which wasn't an updated agenda.
I'm
Yeah.
glad we started our first recording of this meeting.
Yeah.
Never been like this.
Yeah, it's not getting posted.
This won't happen again, I'm sorry.
Okay, so we have a motion,
Yikes.
second on the table, 8.2.
8.1 through 8.3.
1 through 8.3.
You don't have to
Yes.
add 8.1 because they haven't, don't vote on it. It's just points
Oh,
of
right, right.
2 and 3.
So it's 2 and
8.2
3.
and 8.3.
Oh my
Have a
Lord,
motion and a
I did
second.
everybody.
Missy?
I
8.2 and
All right, all those in favor, yes.
Aye.
Sorry.
Aye.
All those opposed? Any abstentions? Those motion carries. Moving ahead to district superintendent's report.
Actually, it's only like literally one item, as you can imagine. And actually, I have a couple of things, so I won't take much time, but let me start with something not COVID-19. Annual budgets, not annual budgets, the state budget. You can tell that I'm exhausted. Usually Roseanne reminds me I need more sleep when I'm staring right through her and I can't remember her name. I'm not there yet, but I'm close. So the state budget press conference today with the governor, he said, hey, we have till April 1st. But there's also talk of the one house budgets not being voted on by both sets of legislators based on the fact that they did work there today, but they left. So it may end up being a situation where the head of each house brings sort of the one house to a negotiation table with the governor, and then they try to get something done by April 1st. I would not want to see the budget go beyond April 1st because that would mean that they could not come to a conclusion on education, which would be the big one, and it would be budget extenders, which means basically there would be legislation through the governor saying, okay, we're going to pass this chunk of money to be spent, but these bills that I would like to see passed are a part of it. So legislative extenders and budget extenders is not a good way to lead. He's never wanted to do that, but these are unprecedented times. So we're hopeful. But what we should be prepared for is the comptroller is now saying that the gap for, so like literally a month ago, both the legislature and the governor had agreed on $700 million more in potential revenue for next year going into the budget. So it would have been the governor's number plus 700 million. We know that Medicaid would have gotten a huge chunk of that. Education would have gotten some, but usually, you know, what happens every year, it's usually the governor's number plus a little bit. Truthfully, with the comptroller's office coming out with a monstrous number of $7 billion deficit in revenues heading into next year, I think it's true. If you own any stocks, you should think it's true. So I think it's going to be a very difficult budget year for our district. So I know that they're in a situation where they were hoping for a little bit better, but I think that everybody needs to be prepared for the absolute worst. And we know that we'll have numbers on April 1st, and April 1st will feel like tomorrow because it's coming quickly. So, but we also might have a budget before April 1st. But it would. Right now, I thought it was likely, and now I think it's probably more likely it'll be heading out towards April 1st. So that's sort of the budget talk. There's nothing going on in Albany other than folks dealing with COVID-19. Truthfully, you know, if you asked me 3 weeks ago when I was spending all of my time on it, I didn't truly understand it. And now that I'm spending all of my time plus other people's time on it, I will tell you that it's that the mitigation that they're attempting to do now, I believe is real. And I believe it's the only way to stop our emergency rooms from being overrun. So as much as we hate not having our kids here, this is really the only choice. The only choice that they have. So the other question that some people have is some districts are using their transportation to deliver food, deliver packets. We are working on legislation which would likely be passed to make sure that those expenses would also be transatable. I can't imagine anybody in the legislature or the governor saying that wouldn't be, but because it's not written in stone that it would be, that's something that will probably come at a later date. All of our districts are being required to report their closure dates, so they're all up. They've all done it. They've done a great job. We went over it again today. They've been very attentive. Your superintendents have done amazing work getting us to where we are. And then they're doing amazing work even further as last night, as of 9:45, we were asked to report one more thing so that the governor, and we're reporting it to SED, but it's on request of the governor so that he can be assured that there are plans in place for our children. So the child nutrition planning, that was actually easy because that was done, right? And I will tell you that is your superintendents, but those are your administrators, those are your cafeteria folks, those are your custodial staff. Those are every single person in your district that was either called upon or chose to volunteer, pulled off basically amazing feats by being able to feed our children literally on a day's notice. Some of them had a 48-hour delay, but that still is amazing to be able to pump out breakfast and lunch to our free and reduced kids, and making sure that they get them not only by pickup, but in many cases by delivery. And if delivery isn't part of the master plan, I know for a fact that if parents called and said, hey, I can't get there, that meals got delivered to their houses. So the child nutrition was number one. That was the biggest concern, and they did an amazing job. As did all of my districts in OCM, and the city of Syracuse knocked it out of the park. The second was a continuum of educational plans and services. Everybody's doing something slightly different there, but everybody is putting together something so that they have a continuity of education. And that is district by district. But that again, that's where people say, well, all these teachers get a vacation now. No, they don't. They're actually expected to work on these plans and to not only put together materials, but to provide helpful and useful feedback to the students after they receive the information back. So I will dispel any rumor that anyone is on vacation, not just the teachers. But if you come to the office tomorrow and you walk around, you will see almost no one here. Well, it's because we knew that this was coming. Folks in the business office that need to be here are here. The ones that don't need to be here can VPN. They can do their job remotely. Same goes with the clerical staff. Like between the department heads, the assistant superintendents, all of the directors, the leadership team, the principals, and of course the technology department, we were prepared and ready for this, so that when the governor now says you have to reduce down your workforce as much as you are, we actually are far below 50% in many cases. There are some departments that aren't. You know, like I'm not sure Stephanie's department, outside of the folks that work in district, has really been able to reduce down, but that's essential staff for us. Yep. So some departments are reduced down significantly, and some aren't really reduced down at all based on what our need is. But I digress to us when I was talking about educational plans. So they've done a good job with educational plans, and they've outlined them. They're very clear. and they've been communicated to most of their communities. Some of our educational plans for our students, because if you think about each department that we have, whether it's exceptional ed, whether it's alt ed, or whether it's CTE, each one of those entities would have to deal with what the expectations would be and how they were going to deliver the information and what their expectations were getting it back separately. So we've been working on how that gets messaged out from each department to each student in each district. So we sort of had another couple of steps, but by week's end, I know education materials are going out, but by week's end, it'll be clear to the people on the end user what the expectations are from each one of our departments. They've worked very hard, but it's a lot tougher when you're delivering services to that many entities out of that many different departments. But I think we're there. I think we're going to be in a good place. And the third one, which we thought was going to be the biggest lift, and that was childcare. How can we report out and monitor and ensure that there's childcare for our health care providers and our first responders. Yes, we care about other folks as well, having childcare, but those are the two entities that we have to ensure for our safety have places for their children to go. And that initially I think the initial ask from the state level was intended to have the municipalities weigh in on that, because none of us closed school without an emergency order basically asking us or forcing us to close school. So like, who's responsible for childcare is the schools. I don't want anybody to think that the state in the governor's office thinks that we're responsible for it. But he does understand that we have a way of uniformly reporting information to Albany where other entities don't sort of have what we call the portal. So like, we go into the portal, they ask for information, we put it in, we send it, we know it gets there. So it became clear that they had to rely on their educational partners to help them determine that children of those entities have a place to go. That email came through last night at 9:45. It became live. The site became live sometime in the middle of the night as well. It was shortly thereafter. I think the directions were very clear. I had a conversation, just so you know, like where your districts probably are based on how quickly we move. I had a conversation with Phil Church this morning. It was, I don't know, before 8. He informed me that they were having an emergency management meeting this morning in Fulton at 10. So he invited me to attend. So this morning I met with the OCM superintendents, talk about that email and how they were preparing for it. Then I went to the emergency planning meeting, and at that meeting, I needed to make sure for all of our plans that we could reach out to healthcare providers and our first responders. So at that meeting, emergency management said that we will reach out to all of our first responders with a request if they have a dire need for childcare, and the health department is going to reach out to all of the healthcare providers. And then the health department also gave me a list of all of our certified healthcare providers in the entire county. So that I got to see that information as well. So we pretty much wrote the narrative of the plan, because we have the plan. The plan is there. Emergency management is going to reach out to this group. Department of Health did these 2 things for me. We also know that we have pretty large providers, including the YMCA and a couple of others, that have already asked for expansions. And as long as they can keep groups to 10 or smaller, and they don't have to occupy any other space, they don't need our buildings. And at this point, they don't need our buildings. It doesn't mean in 2 weeks they wouldn't need our buildings, but they don't need the entire building. They just need rooms so that their providers, they're not asking our teachers to provide, so that their providers can have a space that meets the new requirements. And right now we're not in that space, thank goodness. But so I believe that all of our districts will be able to meet the deadline to submit this like tripartite report to the state by tomorrow at 5 o'clock. And I also know that many of them have already pushed the button and they're gone. So the superintendents did good work today, but I also want to thank Phil Church and the folks at the Emergency Management Department and the Health Department for providing me with that information, because I asked for that at 10 after 10. And by the time I left, got back here by probably 11:30, it was in my email box. So things work when there's pre-planning and when there's partnership. So making a long story long, the nutritional plans worked because the districts are ready. The continuity of educational plans are working. There's going to be snafus. Nothing is going to be perfect. But this is far better than anything we would have seen 15 or 20 years ago had we faced a pandemic, right? If Chris Todd was, well, it would have been longer than 20 years ago, but if Chris Todd was in high school and there was a pandemic, Chris Todd would have been home doing nothing, truthfully. And then the child care piece, we thought was going to be an impossible lift, and with our partners, literally pulled it off today, which I'm forever grateful for. So,
Is it my understanding that if they use a bus, then they have to do this cleaning every time they use one? You heard that? 'Cause-
anytime anyone uses a bus,
or anything.
The school buses, maybe?
Yeah.
I would deep clean a school bus every time.
Maybe when the kids were on it, I don't know about now.
I saw a bus driver at the bank.
Right.
And he said that one reason our school wasn't using their big buses to take food to sites was if anybody goes on that bus, it has to be re-cleaned, even if it's a bus driver.
I would tell you that even if that's, so there's lots of things where people say, well, that's the law or that's a policy. That's just good practice. So I would say that if you had 5 to 10 adults loading a bus and then maybe 1 or 2 adults unloading a bus, that space should be cleaned thoroughly every time you use it, right? So, so that may be the case. You know, and cleaning plans are guidelines, not.
That there's some sticker they have to put on that they're clean to go on the bus, then they have to be done again.
So they have a procedure that kind of
Yeah.
earmarks. That's what we do with our rooms.
Yeah.
So once a room has been deep cleaned, gets a sticker. Doesn't mean that people can't go in there. Doesn't mean they can't, but with the understanding that if the teacher is the only one that's going in and out of that room, then it's not going to get cleaned every single day. We could never keep up with that. But the teacher that's going in and out of that room should be cognizant of, hey, not letting 10 other teachers congregate in that room, because after that, that room probably needs to be cleaned again in order for us to keep up that level of cleanliness. Any questions? Yep.
In the crystal ball that you're using for all this stuff, what are you foreseeing for end of year, graduation, not graduation? How do we start next year?
Yeah, I'm not there yet. I will be. You know, I think that.
I know you gotta be thinking about it, but
Yeah.
you know, it's like I sent you that letter 3 weeks ago,
Yeah.
an email to you and Chris.
Whatever little space is left that's taking up that space, but I do have some thoughts, but I think it would be premature for me to sort of be predicting what's going to happen without a little bit more data. Still, data is our biggest, it's not a weapon, but it's the one thing that we have to look at as we start to plan for what may be in the future.
Yeah, just this evening, my wife and I were talking, I said, we got no reasons to do it. Well, how are we gonna do reasons when we got a third of the year that hasn't gotten done?
Right.
How are we going to graduate children from high school when a third of the year has not gotten out of there? We're gonna have, and on one side I look at it, I think to myself, we're gonna have some angry people. Some kids that are hurt, angry, thinking, stomping their feet. But at the same time, this was beyond anybody's control.
Sure.
Of any kind. Sure. And we got to figure out how to, I guess quite honestly, how to sell this.
Well, I'm inundated with questions like that all the time. And I am constantly sort of checking myself and asking people, can we stay out of the minutia for now? Because what we're doing is we're asking what ifs about a situation that is so unclear, it changes every single day. Like if I make a list of things that I think is going to happen today, I should just keep them all for you, right? We'll just put them up and say, that was a waste of ink. That was a waste of ink. Well, that one came true, so you moved it down to page 7, 8 days later. But that's sort of how quickly things are changing. And and truthfully, when you see the increased numbers in New York from yesterday to today, and then today to the end of the day, no one can predict how long we're gonna be out. And until we get a sense of when and if there was a return, like, then we will have to answer those questions.
Is it fair to say too that the state education department is not just going to hold the same rules in place and expect us to jump over hoops to address them? There's going to be some policy changes at the state level that's going to help with some of these things.
There's gonna be federal changes.
Right.
And I
As well.
kind of look back, look at that and think to myself, there's no other way around it.
No, there isn't. And
It has to be done.
people are concerned about finance right now. I think that's the big question. That's changing every day, but the reality of it is that I cannot imagine that there's gonna be a massive amount of state intake back during this time period, based on the messages that have come directly from the governor that changed from 4 days ago to him shutting down schools, to him saying now he has the ultimate authority to determine how long we're gonna be out and what that's gonna look like, so.
I have a question specific to BOCES, and I'm not sure where the regulations come in. Roseanne, maybe probably best answer, I believe, I think it's welding, it might be Lincoln Technical, is the endorsement for somebody that's in a welding program. I don't know if the state oversees that technical endorsement, but for CTE students, whether it be culinary, welding, heavy equipment, for some of these students, they were 2/3 of the way roughly through their year. What does that look like? Specific to BOCES, specific to CTE, what does that look like for them?
I'd say if this is a 4-week timeout, we will be able to have kids still meet their technical endorsements within 6 weeks by extending hours, or, we have teachers that already come in on weekends and on breaks and different things, so kids get more hours and times. And we have independent evaluators and consultants who actually come in and check our students' work while they're doing technical endorsements. And I know a lot of them would come in to give kids extra time. But if this goes beyond a marking period, then probably those kids, that's when we'll have to get dispensations. We'll have to find out, that's an unknown. But I mean, if I can say with confidence, if it's 4 to 6 weeks, those kids
We
can
can probably
probably
do it.
still make it.
If it's more than that,
They're not going to be able to meet that requirement. They might be able to pass the NOCTI still, or pass some of the written portions. And if they're an advanced student, they might have what it takes to do the performance, but especially if they're a second-year student. But a lot of the kids may or may not have what they need at that time, and that's when we'll make new plans.
Yeah.
It's building the plane while it's flying.
But as far as the credits that they receive for integrated math or science, those credits will still be there available to them through some sort of book work that's going to be.
Right, so our approach, and the approach that was recommended on the federal and state level was that for the first few weeks of this, we didn't give students new learning. The idea behind that is that we're not appropriately set up to meet the needs of students' IEPs. And you would get this haves and have not gap the first couple of weeks of this if we just started cramming brand new learning down kids' throats. So instead, our teachers right now are doing study skills, reinforcement activities, enrichment, etc. And if this goes, our plan is if it goes beyond this long, we are working out plans for how we will then deliver new learning to students if it goes beyond 4 weeks. Because when we say 4 weeks, it's really only 3 weeks because of April break. So, okay, the first week is just kind of people in shock, and parents adjusting. So we're like, we really have 2 weeks. So if after spring break, we find out this is going to be extended another 2 weeks or 4 weeks, then we'll begin the new instruction for kids to get their credits for integrated credits within their CTE classes.
yeah, we don't.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, and that's a good answer, Roseanne, because we really don't know. We're gonna do everything we can depending on our circumstance, but it's gonna be crazy.
Well, based on all the reporting, it's not gonna peak for another
47 days.
45 days, 34, so you're gonna go beyond 4 weeks.
So our administrative team, we've met like 16 hours in the last, 16 hours in the last 24. And our plans now are shifting to imagining that we are going to be gone more than 4, and how do we set that up? I think this first week, it's not about accountability of the teachers or the students, it's about getting a system in place that is unique and brand new, and just getting, it's kind of like they say, when you start a test, you start with the easiest questions, so people aren't, they don't get as hijacked. So we're starting slow and easy, and then we'll be able to increase the rigor.
So I want to thank, and I'm doing a lot of thanking, but like when they meet here, I may pop in or I may be invited, but I am not an essential person making these decisions. I trust them. They are making very good decisions. But with what I'm being asked to do at the state level here and with my other responsibilities just to the south of us, they have taken this and they have produced exceptional work. So if there's something that you're not crazy about, well, that was probably my idea. If it was something that you think is genius, it was, I'm not even gonna say Roseanne, it was probably Mike. But you do need to know that is them, the leadership team, trickling down to the principals, trickling down to the rest of them. So I just wanted to say, they've done a lot of work independently, and all of it has been really nice. So.
My advice was this first week, you ask for the essential questions. Are you safe? Are you healthy? Do you need anything to eat? How are you? How are you? And then next week we up the ante to, working more towards the academics.
I love the staff letter that I believe it was you that put out. I think one of the first things in there, focus on what you can do, not what you can't do.
Yeah.
I loved that too. So, no, you all have my utmost respect. I can't imagine what you're going through. So, thank you very much for everything.
Thank you. That's I'm
Okay. Yeah, I just want to piggyback on this and say that this is unprecedented times, very uncertain times. But I've looked at the leadership that's emerged from all this. Chris, the whole team, top to bottom here, in the districts, the superintendents, the administrators, staffs, everybody. I've never seen such leadership come out of the woodwork in all areas, every single area. And, Chris thanks everybody. Thank you, Chris, and God, thank everybody in this county, to the legislative body also, and the health department. But I am so proud to be a part of education in this county and see this leadership emerge under the most excruciating of circumstances. I've never seen anything like the response that's happened. And it's so heartening. It's incredible. It's family. It always has been family, even more family. So I just want to thank everybody. And of course, I'm dealing with a small audience at this time, but go back to everybody you know and you tell them the thanks that we're bestowing on them for everything they're doing, because this is incredible. It's an incredible response. So anyway, anything else, Chris?
No.
All right, we'll move ahead on to President's report, and I'll begin with the Seward County School Board Association report. Don?
Well, we had an event pretty well all planned for April 28th that we're going to cancel. So that's what we've been doing. Did a lot of planning, and now it'll be canceled. So, do you want me to go on to Central New York?
Yeah, we also, yeah.
Oh,
No, I was just going to say the board member of the year, we were looking for that.
yes, I did send out notice because it's the board of directors for Oswego County that votes on the board member of the year. We ask for nominations.
Yep.
We do have two, so we're voting. We're doing the voting, and we were going to do it at the annual meeting, but we can wait till
Yeah.
Central New York's now, if they have theirs, but
Yeah.
anyways.
We can all zoom in.
Yeah. I do want to say we had a great meeting at Central New York School Boards with our new director. One of the things that we need to work on is getting going and motivated and get some new ideas going. So we were charged with coming up with a purpose statement. And what we were told the purpose statement was is something short enough to go on a pencil that was catchy and people would remember. So it's not your, 20, 30, your paragraph, that's a mission statement. It's short and sweet. And I want you to know that our team won. We were in teams. Our team was myself, Derek, the new director, Derek Dorsey, and it was Connie Douglas from Mexico. So the three of us won. We made a t-shirt, didn't make this into a t-shirt tonight, but we drew a t-shirt and it says CNYSBA, we teach, empower, advocate, mobilize for students. And if you read it down, it says team. So we team. We came up with that.
Yeah.
We're the stars. So that's the only good news I have to report. So
Okay, Lisbeth.
They knew.
they canceled all their
Right, yeah.
meet and
Yeah,
greets.
yeah.
So, yeah, there's really nothing.
Okay.
And Derek in CMYSBA has reached out to everyone and said, if you have any problems, and in fact,
Yes.
he called me today just to see what was going on. So he's very engaged.
Absolutely. All right. Moving ahead to, we need a resolution to establish the date of the city reorganizational meeting. And I don't know what we've got for options on that. That is in early July, usually dances around 4th of July.
Oh, and can I say one more thing,
Sure.
going backwards?
Yep.
We were going to ask the BOCES graphic department if they wanted to do like a contest of this, our new statement, put it on a poster of how they would put it on a t-shirt. But we realized that right now that can't be accomplished. So that was our idea though.
That's great.
July 1st, 8th, or 15th are all Wednesdays. And go with
What's
the 8th.
the constraints, Ms. T, or
Before the 15th.
before the 15th?
It has to be the first through the 15th, so
First through
it
the
could be the 15th as well.
So we got actually three options, 1st, 8th, and 15th. Yeah. I'm good with any one of those dates.
We're looking at 2021.
No,
No,
this is
this July.
This is for this
Okay.
July.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, that's our.
That's why the
calendar.
dates
Do we
weren't
normally
coming
meet
up
the third
right.
Wednesday?
Yeah.
Let's do the 15th. Yes?
That's what I had, I stuck in there just as an example, but just because I'm done, I don't think it would fall on anybody else's, if we kept it the same as what we normally.
Yeah.
Anyone who sits on a home board, I don't think it would be.
Yeah.
It would affect them.
Yep.
Up to you guys. I'm available.
Yeah, I don't care.
Whatever.
Your meeting.
Whatever
So
you
the
guys want.
15th would be the regular meeting date.
I think that's fine.
Okay,
Nicole said something, I think.
Yeah, she thinks that's fine.
Oh, okay.
Who are we looking at to fill the slots for Spiegel Mexico? All going to remain the same? Do we have anybody new?
I've been nominated.
Okay.
I don't know, were you nominated, Brian? Brian's nominated.
No one else wanted it.
You were actually, John, nominated on Central Square, so Andy Martin.
And Darlene's been nominated.
You're allowed to
Yeah,
nominate
so,
somebody from another
There you go.
district. And Brandon White
Appreciate
actually
it.
nominated.
yeah.
So that's the two of us.
And Darlene's been nominated for Mexico.
Okay, so right at this time, the slate is,
Remains the same.
so that sounds good.
15? Want that?
Do you need a motion?
Yeah.
I'll make a motion that our reorganizational meeting be on July 15th.
Donna moves. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we're July 15th. All right, now we have actually a resolution to establish the annual meeting and administrative budget vote dates for the 2021 school year. For now, yeah,
I'll make the motion.
okay. And I'll take a second to get that on the table.
Second.
Dave seconds. Okay. What,
You usually do them on a Wednesday, correct?
do we dance around, Missy, so
So
that
the
we?
first Wednesday would be the 7th.
We usually do the first and the second, right?
Usually do the, well, I kind of, here's what, remember I talked to you about this, because if we went the very first Wednesday of the month,
Mhm.
student programs will not be in session the week before. So if we're gonna do an annual meeting with a dinner, they wouldn't be having that time to prepare dinner and stuff. So the date that I threw in here, just for your discussion, was April 14th for the annual meeting. Just so that they had a week before the actual annual meeting to
And it's
finish.
not spring break, correct?
Correct. The spring break is the week before first week of
So
April.
it's the end of March.
Yes, the end of March.
End of March.
Easter is April 4th.
Okay.
Yep.
I'm good with the 14th.
14th works now, as far as the budget vote date.
And then the vote, we usually rotate that around, so I was looking at the dates and I was looking at the Tuesday, April 27th, so that it was a couple weeks after the annual meeting, so we had enough time to get budget books out, or not budget books out, but the election ballot and stuff
Okay.
like that.
You said April 27th?
Yes, it's a Tuesday, I believe, if I did that correctly.
All right, so,
Correct.
so on the table, we have April 14th for the annual meeting and April 27th for the budget vote. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. All right, motion carries. Just a little bit about our annual meeting this year, and I'll turn it over to Chris for the annual meeting.
Yeah, it's your meeting, but obviously, we've been living it every day. So the annual meeting, obviously, we can't have a dinner. It can't. The idea was we need to get the information out to the components so the components have an opportunity to see Mike's presentation of the budget. Usually that's a max 15, 20-minute, presentation. The idea is that we would use this format. We would notify the districts of the annual meeting. We would make sure that they had the ability to be there virtually. And we would go through the motions of the meeting just like we do, we would have a convener of the meeting. Is that what it called? The chairperson? Chairperson, convener. Tired.
Close enough.
Yeah. So we would have votes for that. And at that point, I'm projecting out that maybe there are people in this room, but I also have to be realistic that that's far enough away from where we are right now, that maybe the entire meeting, including all of you, are in your living rooms. So we will prepare so so we'll be able to have the meeting, record the votes for the chairperson of the meeting, present the budget, and be able to close the meeting virtually. The whole thing will take as long as it takes for Mike to have his presentation and for as long as people may or may not have questions. I'm guessing 20 minutes, 15 to 20 minutes. And then we would be able to make our deadline of April 1st.
Yeah. I think that's all we can do, really.
And as far as meetings moving out from here, like I said, anything I write down on paper today doesn't make sense tomorrow.
I know.
So, I want you to at least be thinking about you know, what do the rest of our meetings look like depending on the curve and the outbreak and where we are and all of those things. So we'll just stay in constant contact. But now that you've sort of had this format, we will make you as comfortable as you can be with this format as we move forward. With me telling you that I meet all day in this format, and it is not as much fun as being here. So
I know.
right. So if I were to be doing the presentation, at least you could get up and maybe go walk around and go in the other room and then come back when I'm done.
Nicole's been walking around. I've been walking with her up there.
Wait a second, you're talking about a shirt and tie and undershorts.
It'll be just me doing the news. So we'll figure it out, but I just wanted to let you know that we are planning, you know, obviously we have our technology folks that are rock stars that we said, hey, can we do this? And boom, it's happening. So.
Now, this will be the first year that I've been on the board. I understand that normally you have a meeting prior to the annual dinner. Will that be canceled at this point? Will we be Skyping into that meeting prior to?
This is the meeting prior to the annual meeting. No.
Usually do a regular session.
Oh, you know what?
Yeah.
See, tired. Yes, we have another meeting. Because you actually sent me an email on this. Yes, we will have it.
Probably depends on.
Depends on what
situation,
business.
right?
Yeah.
I mean, we could still do the meeting, but it would just be the virtual too if that's how you want to do it.
Yes.
So meetings, that was my question.
Yeah.
Meetings in person at this point are going to end today until further notice. We will.
Not necessarily. That will be the college on, but we will be prepared for them to be totally virtual if
If
we
we
need
need
them.
to, yeah.
But now that I'm understanding you, sometimes we have action items that need to be accomplished in April, so we might have like a 10 to 15-minute meeting so that you guys can vote on action items before we have the annual meeting. Yep. Yeah, that is. It hasn't happened all the time, but it's happened a couple of times in the last 8 years.
We kind of don't have the meeting later in the month. We just do
Right.
it that day.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what I'm
Yeah.
reviewing in years
Yes.
past, so that's
Yes.
why I was asking, am I
Yeah.
coming back here on April 1st in person, or am I just planning on? John?
Right now.
I can't tell you what it's gonna look like April
Right.
1st. You know, I'll let you know.
You could
Sounds
be.
good.
Yeah, I mean,
It's 2 weeks away.
yeah,
We'll chat.
yes.
Yeah, and we'll kind of figure it out. And Missy will remind me of what you're talking about before I answer.
It's fine.
All right, just two other quick things for President's Report. On March 6th, we had the graduation for the medical assistants health education program. Excellent group of gals, and they all, upon leaving there, if I understood them right, Mark, everyone in that graduation had already lined up employment.
4 out of the 7.
4 out of the 7.
That's great.
So, which is incredible. It's very gratifying. And this, again, up in the air, and probably not going to happen. Dental assistants.
It's not going to ever
It's
cancel.
canceled, I sent the email to them.
So that's canceled. That was scheduled for April 2nd. I don't know if that'll be rescheduled to a later
They're
date.
going to have just a little something in the room.
Yeah. So those were the two other things that I had to add. Yeah. As far as information, and we'll move ahead to board forum. Any other things for the board this evening? All right, seeing none, we'll move ahead. Now, we do have need for an executive session.
Yeah, we need to, personnel.
We have a need for an executive session for purposes of personnel this evening, so I would take a motion on that. Kevin moves.
I'll send.
Seconds. All those in favor?
Aye.
There you go.